Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion, and I am Peter, the host of this podcast and YouTube channel. Today, I got a special guest. I got Strife the Warrior, who previously joined me to talk about, Big Texas.
Texas. Yeah, you
Big
got it
Texas
right.
Con. There we go. Yeah. So you guys might be familiar with him if you follow the podcast. And if you're finding this for the very first time, thank you for tuning in. This episode, you guys, we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 3, the conclusion of our beloved show. Um, Strife and I, we were very fortunate to get screeners for this very last time, and we both watched it. And we're going to give you our thoughts, and it's going to be a free-flowing conversation. And Strife, if you can just give a little bit about yourself, what you do of your channel. You do a lot of great Cobra Kai videos that
Thank you.
gets the attention of a lot of people, including the cast and crew.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Strife the Warrior. I like to say quote unquote OG fan, but mainly a YouTube Red fan. So I was a fan of the series back when it started on YouTube. Of course, followed it over to Netflix. I got one of the ideas to just kind of like do a video essay when I noticed a lot of the similarities between Johnny and Mr. Miyagi's character arc. So I just kind of did that, and then it just turned to one of those things where it's just like, oh hey, like people want to see me do more of this. So it's been a lot. It's been a fun ride. I had just thought about the other day, like I've been doing this for about 4 years now. So, but typically, yeah, just a lot of character analysis, Easter egg breakdowns. I've also done some stuff on the Rocky and Terminator franchises as well. So that's kind of some of the stuff I've been doing as of late.
Yeah, you mentioned Rocky. You know, you've made some parallel like videos, comparison videos to the series and Rocky, the Rocky franchise. Obviously, its connection to John G. Elverton, but also, plenty of references, several references every
Hmm.
season about Rocky, and this one did not disappoint. All the references are in this one, and you're a lot more of an expert when it comes to the Rocky series than I am. I'm a fair weather fan. Like I've seen all the movies. I uh, if I really thought about it, I can tell you which movies had which opponents,
Hmm.
and even for the longest time, I think I think what one and two is just Rocky and Apollo, right?
Right. Hmm.
Okay. And then Mr. T and Thunder Lips is three.
Right.
Wait, Thunder Lips is Mr. No, Thunder Lips was Hulk Hogan.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. See, I
Yeah.
don't even know Mr. T's name. So anyway, so I have difficulties like keeping characters straight, but I like the movies just fine. Maybe I should do a rewatch after Cobra Kai ends here. So we will you are the guest. So let's start off with our initial thoughts. You finished watching episode 615. What was going through your head?
It wa- it was one of overall. On like how much I like the ending, I would say about like 90% of it. I thought it was a really good way to kind of close a lot of story arcs for a lot of our main characters. Really, that this last match, I think, felt as close as possible to the feeling of season one compared to some of the previous
Mhm.
seasons, just because you kind of have some of that. I don't know what it is. It's just like when a lot of people say that Cobra Kai season one is their favorite season, and I think what it is it matches very closely in tone to the original Karate Kid films, which just kind of
Mhm.
had that same. It's just like that earnest feel that that it has. So I think the fact that they were able to kind of recapture that in this part, um, honestly, I think that's kind of what I want to say is it slightly surpasses out of the three parts of season six, almost or it slightly surpasses how I felt about part two, which I thought part two definitely outdid part one. And I
Mhm.
think part three is either equal or at least slightly better than part two, just given all
For
the,
different reasons, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I love to kind of piggyback on or to add to what you're saying. I love part two for its global feel, right? We
Hmm.
got all these international dojos. We got characters like a Kwan and a Yoon that just made me love Korean Cobra Kai. We come back to the valley, and so now we got like the season one and two feels, and we got Johnny's old Cobra Kai back, and so we're kind of back in that saddle, so to speak. I felt part three of season six felt kind of like, this is John, Josh, and Hayden's like sequel movie to the Karate Kid franchise. Like that's it felt like a movie.
Hmm.
It felt like a Cobra Kai movie. Like season six, part two could have ended right there, and that's your Cobra Kai series. It would have sucked with the death of Quan,
Right.
but part three just feels like a standalone movie. And I think that's what John meant when he was saying like parts one, two, and three are their own mini seasons. Like I totally see it. But yeah,
Hmm.
man, part three just looks so cinematic. There's that sequence where Johnny and Daniel, it's kind of at the tail end of their training, and they're just right outside of the Cobra Kai dojo, and the way like it just there was a certain look to the way that was shot that just felt like a movie, and it felt like the stage and figuratively and the literal stage just felt that much more bigger than season one.
Hmm.
So just yeah, really enjoyed it.
The
My
scene,
thoughts
real
to what
quick.
yeah.
Sorry, I was
Mhm.
gonna say the one you're talking about. Where are you talking about? Where Johnny's confiding into Daniel about like, hey, like, how do you feel about this fight going forward? And he's like, pick up the pads. Are you talking about that part?
Yeah, and then he puts a pass down and he's like, "Look, as your sensei, like
Yeah.
I know when like I'm paraphrasing, right? Like
Right.
he's like, you don't got it, but also like as your friend,
Right.
like yeah, that moment.
So that part was also really good. And to me, it's a little bit of a stretch, but what I thought about it, because what we know going to the fight later on, it's a mirror of the scene in Rocky 3 where Rocky finally tells Adrian, "Hey, I'm afraid. Like that's
Mm,
why I don't want to fight and stuff like that anymore." And then of course, as we know in both of those, both Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 3 and Rocky 3, it then cuts to the beach montage right after that. So I think that's also because they're even framing it this similar shot in the right way where Johnny's kind of on the left and then,
mhm,
like Rocky and then Daniel's on the right, same side as Adrian and stuff like that too. So I think that's also why yeah, just the way excuse me, the way they shot it, the lighting and everything, I think it just completely
mhm.
works. I agree with you on that for sure. So,
Yeah. In that sequence kind of starts off with like Daniel saying like, "Look, I know you like Rocky,
right. Exactly.
and all that stuff." But she didn't even shut the door for me. Um. Okay, so let me see. Um, we mentioned just a little bit since we're kind of like right there,
Sure.
but the beach scene, like I like how they like kind of hug it out and fall into the water
Yeah.
too. So that's Rocky Four, right? Or is that
No,
three?
it's still Rocky 3. Yeah.
It's
That's
still
when
Rocky Three. See, so
yeah, so because Johnny also outruns Daniel like Rocky outrunning
yeah,
Apollo.
yeah.
So it's a
Apollo.
very very Rocky 3-esque montage. And of course, then we get Rocky 2 when like the whole city's basically running with them, like all the kids were running with Rocky 2. And what's also great about that shot is that if you remember right in Ace the Generator, right after we get the title, Johnny's kind of driving down the valley basically as he's on his way to his job. It's like that same thing now because you even see the same sign where it's like Encino Commons and everything. So it's like a
Mhm.
very full circle moment to season one, which I really like as
Oh yeah.
well.
Yeah. A word I would use, this wouldn't be like my main word. I like to play like the one word description game. Like John Hurwitz said, his one word for part three would be best, right? Like he says this is like the best five episodes, probably the best batch, that kind of thing. Um, this is a weird one, but this isn't like again like my number one word, but the first one that pops into my head is bookend. It's a great bookend to so many things that we've seen from several seasons, not just the first one, but
Hmm.
we'll definitely get into it. So I thought the it ended well, like Billy said at I forgot which panel it was, but there was a panel that I even clipped of him saying this, kind of teasing that part three really wraps up everybody's storyline. There's an ending for everybody, things like that. And he's right. I don't think there was one. There might have been one character that I was expecting to see that I didn't see. Did I miss Homeless Lynn?
I don't think she was in
Did you?
there.
Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
have to go
See, so
back and
that's
watch.
so.
Yeah, I
I
don't think she was
expected
there.
to see her because we're back at the old Cobra Kai
Right.
location, but we did see
Hmm.
Nestor in the
Hmm.
bar in the episode 15. So I was a little surprised. So
Right.
yeah. But other than her, I feel, so we got to see Lyle again, the pawn
Hmm.
shop guy, Nestor. So they're all in the bar. All your main students, right? So we didn't see a Brooks or a Kyler because we saw them in part one, and we
Right.
figured, was it part one?
Yes, for
Yes,
both of
yeah,
them.
part one, episode two. So it was episode two of season six, and so they got their send off, right? We know they're good. We know Kyler's gonna be fine, being accepted into this other frat, at the end of that episode. Um,
Right.
and a lot of the background Cobras and stuff that we had seen previously, you know, uh, we've seen in part two, if they didn't show it in part three, like Nate and Bert. I don't think we got them in part three, but we saw them in part two watching the Sekai
Hmm.
Tekai at home. So everybody
Right.
was kind of featured in one way or another. And so that was really, really cool to see. Um, it's kind of wild, now that it is over. I don't even know how I want to approach like reaching out for these interviews, you know. I almost kind of like want to go away quietly rather than like kill myself to get all the stories, So we'll see how it
That's
goes.
fair.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun, kind of breaking down these episodes with Watch Party and getting into the nitty-gritty, speaking with some of the writers again. At this point, I'm in talks with Frank Helmer, who made a cameo. Did you catch that? I don't know if you know what he looks like.
I don't
The
think
costume designer. Yeah. So the costume designer, everything that we see everybody wear, the
right.
amazing geese and all that stuff, he was Johnny's tailor wearing the salmon suit.
Oh, okay. That,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah. So
good
that
cameo.
was the other thing. Like this part three was like a Where's Waldo of Cobra Kai. It was
Hmm.
so awesome seeing so many familiar faces, many of which I have not interviewed, but following the show as close as I do, having a decent pulse on it, I was just like, oh, that I've seen that person, she works in makeup and all that stuff. So that was a really fun thing for me. Let's start off with like some cameos. Uh, let's just start off with cameos, okay?
Okay.
Um, and let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. No Julie Pierce.
Dude, man, I don't know what's more upsetting. The fact that, I mean, Bobby Julie Pearson is more upsetting, but kind of like a side note on that, I really thought we would have had some kind of resolution with Leah. I know Leah
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because like Leah was just kind of supposed to be like the ally for Keenan Anthony, but like I figured they would have just kind of explored that, or at least maybe have her make an appearance one more time. But yeah, no Julie Pierce. I'm just like, I mean, we know
Yeah.
now. I did do some rewatching of season one and season two because I am also doing Easter egg breakdowns of those because I technically never did because
Hmm.
I kind of came in at season three as a
Hmm.
creator. Um, she's in there and stuff like that. Like the one picture we always see of Miyagi, where he's kind of like sitting down and meditating. That's actually from Next Karate Kid, but
Right. Hmm.
she's kind of like tied to the franchise loosely. But it's just like
I know.
I really wish would
It's
have happened.
I'm sure it was just the whole like scheduling conflict. She was
Right.
out promoting movies and stuff, being asked if she was going to show up in Cobra Kai. So, and then Ralph's kind of like coy reaction when asked about it, he gives a little wink to the camera, but that's
Hmm.
probably like we didn't get her, you guys. So you'll just
Yeah.
have to find it at the very end. I almost kind of wondered, like, I mean, the lady that that goes up to Tori and Robbie with like this career opportunity. Her name's Julia, so I don't know if that's like anything. I mean, I know it's Julie Pierce, Julia Macchio. So I even kind of wondered. I was like, I mean, that would have been a weird role for that to be her if she was able to
Right.
show up. So a little bummed out, but hey, we know that she exists, right? Like
Right.
Daniel mentioned it in episode 201
Hmm.
about having been more students, back in the days kind of deal. Now,
Right. Right.
what is another cameo that you caught?
Sheila, I think that's her name.
Yes, yep,
The
yeah,
Lusado
yeah.
employee.
Yep. Sheila makes a return.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Just kind of, of course, Lyle and Nestor too. I'm kind of,
Yep.
I love Matt's role as Lyle, especially because he kind of gives Johnny his own Miyagiism in season five, where it's like, when you realize you're doing this stuff, all that other stuff kind of gets easier and stuff like that.
Mm.
So, saw that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head right now too, but Sheila is the one that kind
Now,
of that
yep.
comes up for me for sure. So,
Here's a fun one because it ties into one of our characters. So we find out that Moon's last name is Taylor.
Yep.
right? So we find
Yeah.
out her mom, Winnie Taylor, is played by Elizabeth Berkley. And my apologies, I don't know her married name. I know that it was hyphenated, but I didn't catch it. You know what's
Yeah.
wild is I just saw her in Portland like a few years ago. You know, I had her.
That's awesome.
I have the DVD set over there. I got the complete Saved by the Bell series that I had her sign for me, and so when I saw her show up, I was like, "That's crazy."
Right.
Love seeing Elizabeth Berkley and her sequence with Chosen. Let's just talk about that right there. What did you think about Moon's mother Winnie and the tarot card reading? Like, because she gave us some. It wasn't even really foreshadowing. It's like here, it's in the cards. Like this is what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Several people
I,
gonna die.
yeah. I love how they also mentioned when you're talking about Chosen's past, his fight to the death with Daniel. I
Oh
love how
yeah,
that was the part, with the past right there. They kind of mentioned that, and of course the foreshadowing, and then Kim Da-eun and whatnot too. Now, I will say, so here's one thing I will say. Of course, no Kumiko either, right? No Kumiko in
right.
part three. But when I was writing the script for the Easter egg breakdown that I currently recorded before I got on here with you, so them going to Kim Da-eun with or choosing Kim Da-eun actually makes sense because if you think about it, Johnny and Daniel never ended up with their first loves, right? So Johnny found Carmen, Daniel found Amanda. So now Chosen finding Kim Da-eun also kind of goes in with that theme, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting too, like the way they kind of played that off as well and wrote that out for the series finale.
I didn't pick up on that, but you're right. And I guess the only difference would be that the feelings from Kumiko wasn't reciprocated,
Right.
so but yeah, the one that he was kind of chasing after the first time. So I do see what you mean. Um let's see. Did anything else we learned from her? Not too much, right? I do like how they bonded over like, some of those
The
reality
Sword Wars.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think there was, so you mentioned Kumiko. So we didn't get a Kumiko, but we got, basically a sequence that they was inspired by in the beginning of the Karate Kid 2 when Mr. Miyagi gets a letter, from Yukie about his dying father.
Hmm.
So we got a really great nod to the Mr. Mailman in the second movie who wanted to bring his wife over to see the backyard, and now we
Right.
got this other guy who also kind of admires the look of it. You can tell from the front, so I like that whole little nod.
Hmm.
Um, the only thing I have a criticism over is now the it's a registered letter. Now me being a mail carrier, right? Like I
Right.
was like I was checking out his uniform. Like, all right, I get it. He probably can't wear like the real thing, but there's a return receipt on the back of this registered letter. So Chosen's supposed to sign for it, and then that receipt's supposed to go back to Kumiko to let her know that he received it.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
right.
fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, yeah,
That guy must have been new.
yeah, you're right though, because even I remember part two, Miyagi was like, "What?" and then he like signs it while still looking at the letter and stuff like that too. So you're right,
Mm.
that is a detail that they missed. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
yeah. I just thought it was funny. I get a little critical when it comes to that stuff when I see it on screen, and not just
right,
Cobra Kai, but like anything. I watched The Postman and was like criticizing everything in
yeah,
that film. And I know they're not, meant to be accurate or anything, but I like that little nod to Karate Kid 2. Chosen was also in Karate Kid 2.
mhm,
I was hoping to kind of, and you know what? I guess it doesn't matter, and it's left ambiguous. But like, who that gentleman was, was that her new beau? She did say that her heart lies somewhere else, so that could have been her beau, right?
right.
Um, or it could have just been a friend, just a friend that happened to be there. So, um, other cameos from people from the All Valley, not necessarily cameo. We haven't seen them since season 4.
Yes,
Right. Season,
that's
yep,
correct.
season 4.
Yep.
And I think Daryl was like some of the funniest stuff in the second or third
Yeah.
batch,
Oh yeah, for
you
sure.
know. And Keith Arthur Bolden, he I don't know what it was. He was channeling something different, but like I don't remember him being as animated with his face before. Like we all remembered him for the whole like it's karate time and all this stuff.
Yeah,
But like that one part where he's like Temecula,
yeah.
like the way
That's what I was
he's
thinking
like
of.
so funny, so funny, and when it cuts to him and Gunther about to fight, his hands are up like I still don't know what's going on, and boom,
Yeah.
kick to the face. So I love seeing
Oh,
Daryl
that was
and
so
what they
great.
wrote for him in that sequence. Yeah,
So what's also interesting, I guess Ron actually did get voted out even after bringing
yeah,
Carrie Underwood.
yeah,
So,
yep,
yeah.
yep. So yeah, it happens. Um, let's see, Bobby makes
Mhm.
a return cameo. Everyone kind of like, oh, if Bobby came back, he can probably officiate the wedding, and we got a wedding in the
Right.
hospital, albeit in the hospital. What did you think about Bobby Brown's return, Tanya and
Uh,
Lorraine?
yeah, he also like in season three, this is something I always kind of quote too, because like is you don't always do the right thing because it works out. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I always still think that's still one of the probably the best quotes from season three. And
Mhm.
the fact that it's funny too because we're kind of going to get a little personal because that scene when he visits when Johnny visits Bobby in the church, that actually kind of really hit home for me too. As you know, I'm engaged to be married. We're kind of planning the wedding right now too, and that scene kind of hit me again this morning because it was one of those things like, hey, look, when's the last time that things felt perfect? Like things aren't always going to work out, and I'm kind of like in that same mindset myself. So, he's like, hey, you just got to take the leap and things will work out for the best. That really hit home for me too, especially because like when I think about like where I was 7 years ago at season one and where I am now, like this show has kind of grown up with me too. So yeah, he phenomenal role as always too, and not to mention we finally answered a long time question like are Daniel and Bobby still on good terms like even after what
Mhm.
happened, and then we saw that even though it was very brief, like hey, what's up. So yeah, it was really cool.
Little bummed out that they didn't have like any dialogue together, but
Right.
hey, they seem to be okay. We can just imagine that, they talked in the waiting room, right? So.
Hmm. Exactly.
Um, let's see here. And we don't have to stick with cameo. We can actually just start kind of getting into it, and if
Sure.
anything else we remember along the way. So in episode 11, we get a return back to South Korea. We got the funeral for Kwan, and we find out that Kwan doesn't have any family. I feel like that's something that we may have said during our part one breakdowns of those episodes, specifically episode three. Just because like, when we first meet Quan, he's not the best student, and he looks like he's there probably because he has no other options, like he's just present, not even there as a punishment or anything like that. It's just he's got nobody else. And so we kind of get that confirmation here. What'd you think about like this opening sequence with Sensei Kim or the Kims rather?
It was awesome. Like it was one of those things. It's just kind of like a reality check of like hey, this is kind of what happened, and to kind of follow up on your comments. Quan also now shares that characteristic with other previous characters in the series and films. Is that like he found family through karate? So with the main thing too is just that what I also really liked about that opening scene is when they did the fade out with the title. I don't know if you noticed, but they did that blurry fade out that was like very prevalent in like 70s kung fu films. Like it's like that very
When it was like
slow,
red Cobra Kai over Master Kim's face.
yeah, and like how the
Okay.
shot like where it kind of faded out with the blur. It's very like it
Hmm.
was very that was something that was very prevalent in like those kung fu movies that were
Okay.
the 70s and things like that. So I thought that was really cool.
What did you think of that episode overall in terms of directing? Did you see who directed it at all?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Okay, so it was directed by Joe Pirulli, who
Okay.
also wrote it, and that's his first episode that he's directed.
Oh,
He
nice.
he was also one of the guys that welcomed me when I went to go visit the set, and he wrote that episode 606 that I
Hmm.
got to watch on set. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. And speaking of cameos, Joe Pirulli was like everywhere. He was at the bar. During the running sequence,
Hmm.
he's the guy like on the far right of the screen that's like trying to like let me join in kind of deal. So you can see him
Oh,
running
okay.
from the right. And also there was another sequence. He's in at least I feel like he's in like three of them, but
Hmm.
really wild to see his writing partner Luan. We'll
Right.
get to that episode hopefully. I'll just say it now since I mentioned him. Luan was the bartender that was like serving wine at the winery.
Oh, okay.
behind. Yeah, yeah, he was
Yeah.
serving it to like Amanda and Daniel. So he had a cameo in episode 12, but
Mhm.
co-wrote episode 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, for Joe's first episode, I thought it was great.
so I need to give him his props then because he did a couple shots that I really liked that were Easter eggs. The first one was uh when Silver comes over to Daniel's house,
Mhm.
they recreate the shot from Different But Same where Daniel and Johnny are on the opposite sides of the table, but now they're on the same side across from Silver. And
Mm,
then another one is where as Silver is leaving the house and he shakes his head. In Karate Kid Part 3, we have that similar shot where Silver introduces himself to Miyagi and Daniel, and he kind of walks away in that same thing, but like kind of like chuckling to himself.
mm.
Now in this episode, it's the same shot, but Silver isn't as confident. He's just kind of shaking his head no and like not. So, props to him for having those shots for sure.
There's
So,
a few of those too,
yeah.
especially in like the one where Robbie gets injured. Like that's
Hmm.
Karate Kid all over it. Especially like how things play out where Daniel's like, "Hey, Chosen, do you
Yeah.
know?"
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like I like that better than what they did with the first season.
Yeah,
In
the first one kind of felt forced on season
Yeah,
one, a little
yeah, it was a
forced.
little
Yeah.
cheesy, but this one felt a little bit more authentic, kind of like, well, Chosen, I know Mr. Miyagi knows something, and like Sato teach you anything like
Right.
that. Yeah, that seemed a little bit more natural. Um, let's see, what else happens in that 11th episode? We do find out that Silver was in remission, right? And like the cancer or something is back.
So what's interesting about that is they deleted that plot line from season 5, and
Mm,
Thomas Ian Griffith actually confirmed that. So
mm.
it was kind of funny how they're like they pulled a doozy on us and said, "Hey, just kidding, we're putting it back in." I was like, "Wow, like that's something else." So yeah, that was I thought it was interesting that they brought that back in, but then also, but hey, it's a good thing they did because then it makes his motives in season 5 that much more hard hitting, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, they've been setting it up since season 4, with like
mhm.
his very introduction with his meds early on. We
Right.
kind of already knew, and then I had interviewed Vanessa Rubio, who plays Carmen,
Hmm.
for season 5, and I asked her, when you and Johnny are talking about like the last names, when Carmen and Johnny are talking about the last names, um, Silver walks into the elevator, and I asked her if she knew like what ward he got off of or whatever, and she said
Oh, I
yes,
see.
and we just kind of left it at that. I'm like, okay, so there was a purpose, that he
Right.
wasn't just at the hospital, obviously. So, but it
Yeah.
could have it could have gone either way. People could have been like, oh, he just happens to know, where people are when he needs to, you know, go
Right.
see them and stuff. And we see that obviously here with this first episode where he sees Gunther. Um,
Hmm.
did you have anything real quick before I ask you a question?
I was gonna say, while we're still on the episode, the punishment scene with the technique
Ah,
that they're with the
yeah.
ribs and stuff like, ugh, man, that was very, very convincing. That's all. I was like,
Yes,
dang.
that was hard to watch with the Min Suk and Chung Hee
Hmm.
being attacked by Yoon per, Master Kim. Let's get the Kims out of the way real quick since
Sure.
yeah. Uh I understand what Sensei Kim did, but it also I feel some type of way about it that now she's a murderer. Like I get it. Like we saw how bad and toxic Master Kim is, what he
Hmm.
was doing to these kids. That's no good. But then I'm thinking about like what's that discussion like when these are his students, these are his pupil. She said this as much in part 2. Are they not going to question where Master Kim is now? And now like we have to be trained by her. we I would have liked a little bit more from like characters like Yoon and stuff like that to kind of have that
Hmm.
discussion, and see that they agreed. No, this was the way. Like we've always loved you as our sensei. He was gonna kill us all. Like
Hmm.
something because I feel like again, I understand why she did it. Now it's just like, all right, now that we got my grandfather out of the way, I'm gonna train you guys right, or
So
you know what I mean?
the only thing I can kind of think of that answers that question is during the Sweet Child of Mine montage, both Kim and the students seem happier.
Mm,
So for whatever reason, I guess it's not that big of a problem if if Kim Sung Young's out of the picture. But it also then kind of uh reinforces that Cobra Kai as a concept can be used for good because if you think about it, the three ones that were associated with like the core principles of no mercy are all gone now, which was
yeah,
Terry, Kreese, even though he redeemed himself, and Kim Sung Young. So yeah, it was one of those things too where like I also was like, wow, she's gonna possibly really either kill or poison Kreese. But
hmm,
then when they got to that in the fight, I was like, man, that's crazy. So I also was
yeah,
kind of initially against the idea of Kim Sung Young fighting too, because I
hmm,
was like, that kind of just seems a little overdrawn. But I actually kind of glad they pulled it off this way instead of having some like 4-on-1 because that's how powerful Master Kim is and stuff. But I do see your points there too with like like hey, how do the students feel about this? And that's kind of like my only guess on the clues. I guess they don't really not too concerned about it if all he was very abusive towards them,
yeah.
for generations. So
They, they showed us, those cutting in the flashbacks of like him, grabbing her as a little girl and picking her up by the
right.
throat. And so like I understand it, right? But
Hmm.
also like I feel like I just need a little bit more of a validation to be okay with it. Because
Yeah, that's
Chosen
fair.
comes back and joins her there,
Right.
so what's that discussion like? You killed your grandfather? And then she's gonna have to explain like how bad he actually was and for Chosen to be okay with that. Maybe he's not okay with that then decides to leave.
Right.
And so that's kind of like so the ending, seeing Chosen arrive there, and I knew it was gonna happen, and like most of me was pretty happy for them too. But again, it was just like, but she just murdered her grandfather.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
needed, I don't know.
I
I'm
think
sure a
that's
lot of
fair. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are probably fine with it. And, I
Yeah.
might be in the minority in that. Um, what I do like is when they had the black scrolls and teaching,
Hmm.
Yoon and the other students how to do this deadly move. And I like some of Master Kim's dialogue, how he's just like, it needs to be perfect. And it's, it just everything that everyone was doing was just not good enough. But then when she takes him down, he's like, it's perfect,
Yeah.
like she got him. And so again, kind of bookend and that paid off. And so yeah, I was fine with it. I was just kind of like I guess I was a little bit more shocked that she ended up choosing her grandfather, which made more sense. And I'm glad for Kreese. Even during my first watch and I recorded myself, I was like, oh, there's no way Kreese goes in the first episode like this. So I was curious like what's gonna happen. So when they did the switcheroo, some people might feel, I don't know, maybe insulted for lack of a better word, that like, oh, they try to fool us, but like they but that's how the show has been. They try to like,
Yeah.
misguide us a little bit, misdirect us, the little switcheroo. And so like I kind of liked it that I did not see that coming. I was just more kind of like, oh, she's not gonna kill him, so what's gonna happen? And so it did keep me on the edge of my seat for sure.
So here's a question then. And this is how I interpreted it. Does Master Kim then not realize that Kreese killed his best student?
I think he did. I think that when he brought up Captain Turner, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
I
think
think that
Kim
was
knows?
Master Kim or Sensei Kim?
Sorry, Master Kim.
Master, I think he does. I think that was very
Oh wow.
specific. I mean, he's just like, oh yeah, he went to go fight off in your war and never returned.
Oh, I
You
see.
got something to say
Okay.
about
Yeah.
that? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how I read that sequence. Yeah.
See, for me, I was just like, wow, he just does not know. I had kind of just kind of thought that too and whatnot. So
I think he suspected. I think he suspected.
suspect. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
That's
So.
why he brought that up. Yeah. Okay, so we got the reinstatement of the Sekai Tekai. Oh, okay. Speaking of cameos, Julia Macchio shows up, cousin
Hmm.
Ness. We got Louis and Anush. Love seeing those two together. I think one of my favorite moments with Louis is when when Daniel's like, "Oh, you guys are my right hand man, men or whatever." He's like, "Oh, I'm more of a southpaw."
Oh
I was,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I kind of like that because Rocky's a southpaw, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's a Rocky
Yeah,
reference.
right. And so I really did like that, and I'm just like, really, Louis Jr. doesn't know what a right hand man is, but I get it. It really worked there, but I do love seeing cousin Ness show up and her second cousin Sam. That's how that works, right? Because she's Daniel's first cousin.
Thanks. Yes. Yeah, because Sam would
Sam's
be Vanessa's second cousin. Yeah.
second cousin, right?
Yeah.
So I love that they confide things in each other. You
Right.
know, um, I was at Disneyland when I got to meet both Julia Macchio and Mary Mauser, and they kind of joked like, "Oh yeah, we're like very close because we joked that we're sisters from the same mister, and so like I like to see that they got to share screen time together for being as close as they are, and that she's cousin Ness is basically the catalyst to like having Amanda understand that like maybe even if she's not a big fan of cousin Ness, that she's still right in her analysis of the family,
Hmm.
observations and things like that. And one of the funniest sequences is just when Amanda walks into Daniel's office and like says all these things that make zero sense to Daniel, like who like like whose words are you regurgitating here? Actually, it sounds like she didn't even change the words. I thought that was super
Yeah.
hilarious, that scene.
Yeah, no, that was really great. And see what this one also kind of the dynamic between Amanda and Daniel in that episode kind of threw me for a loop because I really thought that Amanda was just gonna just be which I guess would have kind of explained the time skip. Amanda was gonna be like, yeah, no more
A month
crying.
later, yeah.
We're done. Like this is it. Like somebody died at the tournament. Like we're done. So uh I really thought Amanda was just going to kind of maintain that same stance like she did in season two, but it's kind of a pleasant surprise too. I think
Yeah, it
full
wasn't.
circle.
It was, and it makes sense.
Hmm.
Like he comes back, doesn't want to talk about Barcelona. The whole Mr. Miyagi stuff, like, all this karate stuff that has brought so many trouble and problems to their family. Things are going good, and cousin Ness points it out. It's like, well, you're okay with it because like you're good. Like things are great for you. Like me and Anush, he's exactly where I want him to be. And the man was like, no, it's not like that. But it is exactly like that. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that she kind of called that out. Um, anything else with the Sekai Tekai and Terry Silver? Oh, I kind of called it as it was happening, but I also didn't see it happen. Like I wasn't able to predict it really, but the Johnny's test drive being
Oh
silver.
yeah.
Just a few of those things that was like shocking in terms of like my reaction was Silver and Johnny in the car, and then Johnny brings Silver to Daniel's house
Yeah.
without any type of warning. We're like, hey, I'm bringing somebody over, just so you know. I'm not gonna say who yet, but we need to have a talk. I don't know. I don't. But that's not sexy, right? That's not. There's no drama in that. There's
Right.
no so I totally get it, but yeah, I was pretty shocked for on both fronts, like bringing Silver into the house.
Yeah. It fits pretty well too because Johnny was like, "Hey, just trust me on this." Because I think the other
Yeah.
thing too is just like at that point, if Silver tried anything funny, then Johnny was gonna attack him with Daniel. Speaking of Silver, here's something I wanted to ask is it was never explicitly stated when Silver found Gunther, was that Tahiti? Was that supposed to be Tahiti? I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
I it could have been you're right. It doesn't explicitly say, but Gunther did say that not only was Silver not invited, but like he didn't want to be found. And
Right.
so it could have been Tahiti and it was not even a coincidence. Like Silver's gonna Silver. Like he's gonna find you if he wants to find you. But I think it was to Tahiti. That would have been like an Easter egg, and I feel
Hmm.
that would have there would have been something unless you go back and kind of I don't know, do a comparison of when
Yeah.
Kreese was there in part three versus Gunther and see if they try to make it look the same.
I
I think that
it
would
looked
be the only way.
it looked very similar. The only difference though was when Kreese was getting his massage, he was outdoors. like under a
Okay.
little not a shed, but you know what I mean. There was a kind of like
Yeah,
outdoor
yeah,
under like an awning or something
yeah,
like that. So, but I that's what I kind of thought was like, oh, I guess they're trying to make it like he's in Tahiti or something like that. So
yeah. The in my opinion, I'm gonna say no because I feel Tahiti was more of like that destination you want to go for something like that. Gunther says that he was basically in hiding, so wherever he chooses is probably not somewhere many tourists goes.
yeah,
Maybe.
that makes
You
sense.
know. Um, let's see. I did have a question. Um, was it about Johnny? Oh, so remember as in like you would have forgotten, but parts one and two, they
Yeah.
spent so much time building up the tension between like our main characters, Johnny and Daniel, the binary brothers, Sam and Tori to a certain extent, Miguel and Robbie. Do you think part three it was all earned? Did that all pay off for what we see in part three? Johnny and Daniel, do you trust me? Yes. You know, you wanted me to be your sensei, but also as your friend, you know. So like all of these dynamics,
Right.
the binary brothers are being good together now. Robbie, did that all pay off for you?
Yes, but not necessarily from part one to part two, more so
Right.
as how it all came full circle from season one was how I was looking at it. So
Okay.
because like for example, one of my favorite shots of the episode Strike Last, Strike Last,
That was the 14.
14. So, when the title card comes on, Johnny and Daniel are standing on the same sides of the dojo again, but this time they're bowing to
Mm,
each other in comparison to Strike First, where they were on the same sides of the map, but they were facing off against each other. And not to
right.
mention, even though it's not said, it's implied that Daniel buys the dojo for Johnny, like Silver bought it for Kreese. Because he
Oh,
says,
right.
he said, hey, look, I not only brought the rent down, but I also talked to the landlord and the dojo's in your name.
They're carrying, yeah. I'd have to go back and rewatch that. I was under the
Yeah.
impression that it was beyond just getting the rent lowered. I thought this was a gift from Daniel to Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah, yeah.
sorry. Yeah, that's kind of what I meant to say. But like,
Oh,
I because he said he did talk down Zarkarian, so he not
yeah.
only bought it for Johnny, but he's like, hey, if you
Got the
have to
rent
pay
down.
the
Yeah.
rent, yeah,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. So
That's
yeah.
the least Daniel could fucking do. Let me say that I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I just dropped the F-bomb, but Daniel got it raised in the first place.
Oh
That's the
yeah, I
least
agree.
you could have done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because
Right, right.
in my the video I did with Johnny and Miyagi, like the first video essay I did, that whole rivalry of season one and two was really that Daniel was Sato and Johnny was Miyagi, because
Yeah.
Sato was willing to
I like
not
that.
only own everything, but also willing to tear down the same village that he owned and stuff like that.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
completely agree. So
Yeah. Anything else you could think of with the episode
oh
11
yes,
Into the Fire before we move on to episode 12?
funny Easter egg where Daniel says early retirement on the party planning,
Okay.
like Karate Kid Part Two. He's like, yeah, Miyagi's like, yeah, I got an idea for your career, early retirement.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
I missed that one. Um, I okay, I think the other one I was about to ask you comes in part 12, so we can
okay.
transition into that unless there's anything else related to like maybe Carmen in the episode 11 or because I think with that one we do find out that the kids are also down for, returning to the tournament or to
Hmm.
have it resumed rather. So we're good there. All right, episode 12. Do you know who directed this one?
I don't. You're probably
Okay.
if you ask me, I was like, I really don't know. I didn't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't pay
That
attention, but I'm interested in hearing though. I am.
Yes,
So
so
yeah.
I will share that each time. I
Okay.
only ask because I didn't know
Just in case.
if that's
Yeah.
something
Sure.
you keep
Sure.
an eye out. So that is something I am always looking for. I do know after my second watch, I do know who wrote and directed every episode. So
Okay.
we'll open up every time we do that. So the writer for episode 12 was oh yes, co-writers Ashley Darnell, who
Okay.
also co-wrote episode 608.
Okay.
Um I'm blanking on the title of
Snakes on
that.
a
Snakes on
plane.
a Plane.
Yeah.
Yep. And so not Emily Abbott this time that she co-wrote that episode with, but this time she co-wrote this with Kyle Savali, who is also the creator's assistant, and he's the one that I coordinated with for my trip down to Atlanta, and he was the other one
Oh,
that
okay.
gave me a tour. So he also tipped his hand a little bit. Sorry if he wasn't supposed to say that, but he told me that he wrote
Mhm.
episode 12. And
That's
but
awesome.
at that point I knew that there was going to be 15 episodes. I don't think that was actually official yet. Um, right. Well, because like Netflix releases everything so late officially, right? Like
Right.
when they accidentally gave us the date for part three and then took it out like
Yeah.
within 12 hours, so um but yes, and this was directed by none other than William, aka Billy Zabka.
Oh, wow. So then that actually that kind of makes to me that makes me that episode that much greater, especially because of the different themes of this one too. Especially
Yeah.
when you think of Rattled, because it's
So
not. Oh,
yes,
go ahead.
Rattled. That's
Yeah.
great. No, no, I was about to say because we didn't say the title. Rattled. Great. Johnny is the one who's mostly rattled. We got the baby and all
Hmm.
that stuff. But go ahead, continue, please.
Yeah, I would say Johnny, Chosen,
Yeah.
Tori and Robbie too, and of course a baby's rattle basically is also kind of like the
Hmm.
meaning there too. So,
Yeah. So we talked about Chosen. I think we kind of covered, like him at the winery.
hmm, yeah, we did.
Him receiving the letter. So I think we're kind of done with Chosen with episode 12. This is where we also got Johnny visiting Bobby. So I kind of love, the idea of Billy directing him and Ron Thomas, who he's been friends with, for several decades. And then this is also the one where it is funny too because like I feel Ashley Darnell, she pens a lot of episodes where we get peak Johnny moments. And
Hmm.
so we got like, Johnny trying to get he's got that t-shirt that's a tuxedo and
Yeah.
he's like learning how to cook and all that. So she does a lot of those type of episodes and so we get to see classic Johnny behind a computer Googling stuff. I really love that. This is the episode that we also get a cameo from Frank Helmer, costume designer that I just mentioned.
Hmm.
He's the one, doing the tailor, and I love and again, I can't wait to speak to Frank about this because there's a part where the tailor and Johnny hug, and
Oh
so
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So Frank kind of teased that he has a great story about like just that whole cameo of his, so I thought it was very fitting, pun unintended, that the costume designer ends up being the tailor for Johnny Lawrence. Um, what were some of the big things? Now, we hadn't seen Tori in the first episode. Is that correct? Right? Like we didn't see her until
Yes, that's
now.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was wild because I think a lot of us were thinking that Robbie and Tori were going to break up. So it doesn't really seem immediately like they're back together in this opening the opening of this episode, but we find out that they still talk because Tori says something like like I'm lucky that he still talks to me, or something.
Right.
But she's done with karate. She's done with karate, but it's Sam that kind of talks her back into this. But overall, like episode 12, I thought it's well directed, and I'm not saying that just because it's Billy, but a lot of emotional sequences. Um it's is Kreese, yeah, Kreese shows up to talk to Tori and stuff, right?
That
Was that Skeletons?
skeletons.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's right
Is
after the ESPN like intro.
okay, so is there any Kreese and Silver in episode 12? Maybe I should have.
Let me look right now.
Yeah,
I
if
have my
you want to look that
script
up.
up.
Yeah. So
I don't think
this
no, I don't think
episode,
they're yeah, I don't think they're in this episode that much because
okay,
it's really mainly about you know obviously Johnny wanted to propose, him talking to
yes.
Bobby,
The baby's
Robbie
name.
training with Miguel, the baby's name, of course,
Yeah.
Tori training with Sam, and then of course the whole winery
Yes. Okay.
debacle. So.
I don't know if I have really anything else to add to the winery. I already mentioned Luan Thomas, one of the writers, and producers of the show. He has that cameo. Um, I like a lot of the stuff with the Diaz's and Johnny in this episode,
Mhm.
and I think this is another reason why Billy directed this episode. Very Johnny centric, and it's about like the wedding, and you got Bobby returning, and I really love like the scene where Johnny's trying to put the crib together, and there's so much that you can like unpack from that as well. Like starting with like Allen wrench. So it's like, no, like, I got my own, or like not understanding what an Allen wrench was. But
Oh, so
also,
stop you there. That's
yeah.
actually 11 you're talking about.
Oh, that's 11. Oh
Because
crap.
what because he's like because he was I'm pretty sure because he's like it's just I didn't get to have my dream and whatnot, and then that's why Johnny is convinced to take Silver to Daniel's household because he's like Silver
Ah,
kind of like hey, Silver played into that like hey, you didn't get your dream, like is Daniel okay
yeah,
with
yeah.
this, is that what
Okay.
Daniel told you? So
Yeah.
but now
Okay.
you
Makes sense.
they do talk though because they talk about the baby's name because he's like you really want to
Yeah.
name your daughter Amanda, so
Right, right, right.
so
Um, and so I'm pretty sure this is in 12, but it's kind of what starts. It's the catalyst for what to send Johnny off on his like little montage of like Johnnyisms. But it's his moments with Rosa. I
right.
really like it. She kind of like jokes like Bastardo or Bastarda, as a
Yeah.
name. And so when she comes home and sees all that Johnny did, like she's like so sorry. Like you know what I mean? Like and I'm not asking you, you know what I mean, but like the fact that she came home and she's like, "Oh man, like I struck a nerve there. Like I didn't mean for all this, but hey,
Oh no,
it pushed."
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to control, but no,
Yeah.
it does because like um so when I proposed to my girlfriend, now fiance, back in December, me and her mom kind of had a similar moment because
Mm,
her mom was very unlike Rosa. Her mom did not did not like me at first initial. Long story short, we kind of made amends and stuff like that in that moment. Like when I asked her for her blessing, and stuff like that. We even shared a hug too. So it was very. So that scene also kind of hit close to home. Not to mention
yeah.
Rosa saying one of my favorite Miyagi quotes: "If come from you, always write one."
Yes.
So
Yeah. So
yeah,
when she said that, I go, "Wait, did Miyagi say that?" So I kind of questioned
yeah,
it because it just
yeah.
sounded so familiar. It sounded right. Yeah, I thought that was a really beautiful scene. And it was that's the other thing. If I hadn't said it yet, sometimes you think of a character and you're like, man, we're not getting enough of this person. But hell, when we get them, it's so meaningful, right? Like
Exactly.
Rosa, we saw her in episode 11 and then like 12. She gets her moment with Johnny. And
Right.
so I love all of that too, and how yeah, her that comes home and he's trying to apologize, and then the water breaks, and then they have to head over to the hospital. Anything else you could think of with episode 12?
Yeah, a few things actually. So. I like the fact that Bobby's speech matches with the Binary Brothers being friends forever. Sam and Tori, rivals turned friends. What I also like too is near the end of the episode, a couple different notes I got. I love how Johnny is wearing a white shirt and black pants because now he's fully balanced compared to season
Mm.
3 where he was just all black after the
Hmm.
Christmas party. Um, and this is probably going to be like probably going to be like what the hell, Strife, you never heard the song. I had never heard of the song Silent Lucidity up until that point, and I
Me
I didn't
neither.
realize, yeah, and apparently it's a really good power ballad. I was like, wow, this is a I would have, when listening to that song, I figured like, oh, maybe this came out like in 2000s, like late 2000s. No, this that song came out I think in 1990, the year I was born, so it's just like
There
very
was
fitting song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a couple times I tried pulling up what I thought might have been the title of it. That might have been one. And then there was another one. Um, I think it's when Johnny and Daniel are driving in that banana boat, with the top down. I think that
Oh, yeah,
song. I
yeah.
was also trying to find out what the title was. There's a lot of great needle drops, and the only one that I picked up on was "Take My Breath Away."
Oh yeah, yeah. Top
Yeah,
Gun.
and
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The Top Gun, the Maverick, all of that. So when they came in playing it, I go, "Oh, that's so familiar. What is that? What is that?" It took me a hot second. I had to like hum along with it, and I'm like, "Oh, the Top Gun reference," So I love that coming back full circle, and oh my God, that's such a great sequence between Johnny and Carmen, him proposing, "Will you be my
Mhm.
wife?" and the way she answers, so well done, so well done. I love it. Um. Episode 13, Skeletons?
Oh man. So here's the one. Did you notice that episode 13 through 15 is a reversal of season 1? because it's skeletons, esqueleto,
Escalado.
strike first, strike
Yeah.
last,
Hmm.
ace degenerate. I thought that was brilliant.
I did
The
not pick up
titles.
on that, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Once you said that, I went immediately to episode three, Escalado. So four was Rattled, and the other one was Cobra Kai Never Dies, right?
Right. Though, yeah,
Uh,
though I think it's really season one, season one, episode 1 through 3,
Right.
and then season six, 13 through 15 that match. Or,
Okay.
kind of like opposite and stuff like that. But
Right.
Rattle,
But
I guess you kind of,
what was 104? What was the? Do you remember the
yeah,
episode title
that's
for
Cobra Kai
104?
Never Dies.
Okay. Yeah. So it's literally just one and three, and then 13 through 15. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
did not pick up on that. So Rattle or Skeletons is directed by Joel Novoa, who also directed episode 606. I'm blanking if he also directed episode 607, but definitely 606. That's the one I got to watch. So I saw
yeah.
him there. Um, and this it was written by who did Skeletons? Was it Chris Rafferty? I think it might have been Chris Rafferty because I think 14 was Bob Dearden and then John
Okay.
Josh and Hayden for 15. So I think, yeah, Rafferty, who the last time we saw him, he did the Mike Barnes episode. I'm trying to
Playing
remember
with Fire or Underdogs?
Underdogs. And
Okay.
then I think he did 607. What was the title for 607?
Dog in the Fight.
No, that no, that's I think that was actually Darnell. But at least 604 with
Excuse me.
Barnes. Yeah.
Okay.
Underdogs,
Yeah.
yeah. So he definitely did that one. Maybe 609. Anyway, so Chris Rafferty, it was newer for season six. He did three episodes at least. Also some cameos. I know for sure that he was in the running sequence, and I think he might have been at the tournament as well in in
Okay.
in one of the episodes in the background. So I follow him enough that I can see like anytime I see him, oh, there he is. Yeah, this one, holy shit, let's just go straight to why, well, maybe not why it's called Skeletons, because there's so many other reasons, but let's just go to that dream sequence. It's not even a nightmare anymore. It's the dream sequence.
Yeah.
Um, I love how let's just talk about it. Mr. Miyagi shows up
Hmm.
and it's the movie version of Mr. Miyagi, and he's doing all the fight moves from the Karate Kid Part One. And I just love this sequence is just as scary as Daniel being chased in that big open field. You think about that
Right.
John G. Avildsen shot. You're just the open field and like the
The fog.
slithering of
Yeah.
the snakes chasing after Daniel. This was just as bad when they're like climbing over the fence, kind of like snakes, like they're slithering over the fences and all of that. And I just love back to back wheel technique and
There's also a
yeah,
Karate Kid Part 3
emotional.
move too.
Okay.
So when Miyagi ducks down and does that back kick, that's when he did that
Is
to
when he gets
Kreese.
gets on his hands and then kicks
Yeah, that's
backward?
what he does to
Or
Kreese because
okay.
like I think he hit because in the fight with Kreese in Karate Kid Part 3, Kreese gets hit in the stomach first, and then Miyagi does that duck down and kick like
Mm,
really quickly and stuff like that too. But that's like right after the jumping knee from Karate Kid Part 1, where he does knees both of those guys at the same time.
yeah.
That's definitely one of like my favorite Miyagi moves is the double knee. So yeah,
Yeah, the AI, it's still not really quite there. Like I'm
yeah,
watching his lips move with the audio, and that's not quite syncing up, but it looks great. Um,
right.
and but my only thing is like sometimes I feel like the head looked a little bit bigger than the body sometimes.
Yeah, I think whoever they were using for the stand-in too, like, because the thing is
Mike,
like,
yeah.
well, it's just because the hairstyle, Pat's
You
head
gotta
was
have the
more
width, yeah,
thinner.
the bald, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, which whoever was wearing it as the stand-in Nancia, it wasn't bad. It's just there was you can definitely tell the
No,
difference in
right.
hair. So yeah,
Yes, yeah. My guess, and it is not in the credits, so we'll have to wait for like IMDb or
right.
whatever, or when the show drops, and then we'll find out from behind the scenes. But my guess would be Don Lee because he was the stunt double for Young Miyagi as well.
Okay.
So yeah, if you go check out like Brian Takahashi's like Instagram, I'm sure he's got pictures with him and Don Lee wearing the same gear stuff. You know.
Did he also play Kim Sung Young in Bad Eggs?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I
And
thought the
this
name
that's
sounded
why he
familiar.
was obscured because they hadn't
Right.
yeah casted somebody. But yeah, oh, the fight choreographer. There you go.
Right. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, it was really emotional the way he was talking to Mr. Miyagi. I got choked up. It was really quite emotional. I think this was Chris Rafferty's best episode,
Yeah,
hands
it
down.
was skeletons. Oh, and we haven't gotten to the other stuff too, but yeah, no, that sequence was really really cool. And then I think what also really helped is following that dream sequence, Daniel finally came to the realization that like this isn't my fight anymore. Like it's not on me. And it was never about revenge or never about all these other things. It was just really about just training so I don't have to fight.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
We in the episode 11, Kreese, basically says his goodbye to Senta Kim, who also says this is the last time we'll see each other. And so Kreese comes back to the US, says his goodbye to Johnny, right? Is this episode?
Yes, to
Yeah, in the
Tori and
parking
Johnny.
lot. Yeah, yeah, and then to Tori. Yeah, just really emotional. You gave me a bit of a heads up, like, oh, this some really good acting here, and I
Yeah,
agree. Robbie breaks his back. Tanner's just killing it, and he's emotional. Robbie's
yeah,
emotional talking to Tori. We get some shots there that look just like the first Karate Kid.
hmm
But yeah, Kreese and Kreese trying to say sorry to Johnny in the parking lot, and Johnny's like, "Look, I'm gonna go watch my son fight." Like
yeah,
that was all really, really well written. This is one of those episodes where like there's a lot of great dialogue, and you can point to a lot of great things happening, and to kind of lift something from Watch Party, what he said in um episode 608, like that's the bridge between kind of like the first two episodes to the third. Like or actually, no, I think it was episode 9. Like you kind of feel like there's not a lot that goes on there, but then when you watch it, you're like, oh shit, there's a lot of great dialogue, a lot of exposition, and like we're about to get into like the finale of the show kind of thing.
yeah. No,
So,
yeah. I mean, the other thing too is just that like for me, what really wrote me into Cobra Kai, like when I think about watching the first season, it wasn't just. I mean, the action was good too, but like for me, it was about the character development. That's kind of why I
yeah,
love writing these character analysis and things like that, and um, especially with Robbie saying like hey, if I'm in second place, there's worse places to be, and whatnot. And then oh man, dude,
there's
when
a lot of great dialogue. Yeah,
Johnny and Kreese finally had that moment. What I really appreciate about that scene is that Johnny is still so hurt when Kreese tries to touch him the first time. He bats it away because he's like, "Don't
yeah,
like, please don't hit me."
yeah.
And then when
I loved you,
Kreese,
man.
yeah, yeah, and when
Right?
Kreese finally puts his hand on his shoulder, Johnny still flinches just a little bit, and then you can see him like kind of becoming that kid that like that inner child, and just kind of like breaking down. And I was like, God, I was like, man, this is like probably the easily the best acting of the season. Just
Yeah,
that powerhouse scene with him and Martin,
yeah,
so
for sure. So when they have that heart, quote unquote, heart to heart in the hallway. Was that the same episode or was that the next one? Because
that
Johnny
skeleton,
says like,
yeah,
"Hey, okay," because he
yeah,
was like, "Hey, what was that yesterday?" And so this is where Tori is like fighting by herself, and there's no male fighter to replace Quan, and
right,
we'll just kind of gloss over it a little bit, but this is
yeah,
when. We're about to find out that they're going to bring Cobra Kai back. I don't think we
hmm
really have to talk too much into that. Um, but yeah, love the sequence in the hallway. Johnny tells Daniel, "Hey, I'll be right back," and then he's like, "Look, I loved you, man." And then, um, really great closure to that
hmm
relationship.
yeah.
I feel.
I will
Uh,
say a couple things about that though too. It's also very fitting that Kreese was the one that took Cobra Kai away, and now he's giving it back.
yeah, you're right.
N-
You're right. We're up for season 2.
And also that Tori kind of got her closure as well because Kreese is kind of smiling far off in the crowd like Miyagi was at the end of the first Karate Kid film. So that was yeah, I thought that was not, and I'm not gonna lie, like even though I really wanted Robbie to win the Sekai Tekai and whatnot, something just hit me seeing Miguel and Tori walk out together in their classic geese. I was like,
Yeah,
damn, this is the show. Like this is what it's
yeah.
about. So
I don't think I said this yet, but I don't do theory videos, but I do posters based off of like ideas.
Hmm.
And there's stuff that I put out where you're like, man, that Peter's like spoiling, but like I had no knowledge of any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Even recently, when I made my post, with me in the dojo, it says, spoiler does not exist in the
Right.
dojo. Like I didn't realize what sequences we were going to see in the OG dojo. Like I had a feeling that we would
Yeah.
see it again, but I didn't know Johnny was going to get that dojo back, restart Cobra Kai, and
Well,
that we were
yeah.
still going to see Fear does not exist in his dojo.
Well, the other thing too was that um the trailer and teasers were really hinting at like, hey, Johnny's gonna have a dojo again. So
Yeah,
for me, and not to mention, like the moment I saw that shot where Daniel's in the OG dojo, obviously now we can talk about, but he was talking to Tori, but they
yeah,
didn't show who he was talking to in the trailer. I was like, easily, I was like, that's the color scheme. I said that it's coming back,
right.
like you know,
Yeah, yeah,
stuff. But no, like you said, like I'm not a fan of especially people just spoiling the show ahead of time for everybody and stuff
right,
like
right.
that. So yeah,
And then I forgot what it was that inspired me, but I did make a poster of like Johnny and former Cobras wearing the old school geese. And I did not think that we were gonna see that. So like
yeah,
now, like in hindsight, people might be like, shit, like Peter was spoiling the return. Like,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I was just like, it would be cool to get a poster to see like everybody in the OG geese together. That was
right,
it. Yeah.
exactly,
And so like nobody's out there talking about like let's be water spoiling things, if he gets something right,
yeah,
but I don't know. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of funny that like some things I'm just like, oh well, I wasn't that far off, with just like these little puzzles. Maybe because I don't make like enough of them, and sometimes it feels like a little like I knew something.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't really have to go scene by scene for the next for the rest of it because they kind of just really lump into it. Let's get the Iron Dragons out of the way. I knew the whole Tooth Fairy thing would come back, and so when Tori talks about not knocking her teeth
I
out and
forgot she
taking a
was
picture on the
called
mat.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
And so I kind of knew that was going to happen again, and they did it. Tori knocked out her tooth, at least one, and she's like missing a few there.
yeah.
So we knew how that was going to go down. I was really battery running a little low. I was really surprised by the stuff with like Sensei Wolf, who we find out is Shao, I think it was. And I actually asked Emily and Ashley, who wrote episode 608. I was like, "Is it just Wolf? Does he have a first name? Like, does he have another name?" And I forgot how they answered, but they didn't really give me an answer. And I'm like, "Oh, maybe we're gonna find out the next part then." So it's that thing. Like, often I ask questions that are probably gonna get answered, and that's kind of
So,
how I guess.
so
Yeah.
speaking of Wolf, I wanted to kind of get your opinion on this too, because it was something I put in the Easter egg breakdown. Was that supposed to be a reference to Mighty Ducks? Because obviously Karsten Norgard is in there. Because
I
he was
asked as
called Wolf
yeah.
Stanson. Yeah.
Right. I think I even asked them that same question because they talked about like watching a lot of Mighty Ducks too, and I'm like, well, the Carson Norgard's in there. And I don't remember the answer. I think it was a coincidence because I think a lot of the questions I asked, they were like, ew, that was a coincidence, like, oh,
Yeah.
this line was this a variation of this line from that movie? And I think even Emily kind of admitted she was like, I've seen all those movies like 3 times, and so she's like, I like to kind of come in with like the kind of like be the one that's a little bit more fresh and not tied to the nostalgia kind of thing. So um yeah, did not see that coming, though people had speculated that there would be like a sensei match, and this
Yeah.
this is why I said that I thought it was like John Josh and Hayden's, way to kind of make a sequel to The Karate Kid as well by having Johnny,
Right.
kind of get his victory. And so really really enjoyed seeing that. I'm kind of rushing it a little bit because I don't have a charging cable
Oh, that's all
and,
good.
and I'm running low on battery. Yeah, yeah. So let's just kind of start throwing your thing out there. Other cameos that I think we kind of touched on all the cameos. Did you see any YouTubers in the audience during the
I
tournament?
saw one. Balin Levine
Oh, yeah,
Levine.
yeah, Braylon Levine or Balin Levine. I saw Drew Cobra Kai Kid a couple times.
Oh, I didn't realize he was there.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep, yep. He was there. I knew he was on set. I assumed it was to be an extra, and So there was one shot that was very visible. He's kind of like front and center. I think it was actually in episode 15.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
they might have both been in 15, but yeah. So saw him. Dennis. Dennis died, huh?
He got you're familiar. Wait, which Street Fighter games are you familiar with?
Kind of just like
Just two?
part two Turbo, maybe. That's it.
Do you remember Akuma or no?
Yeah, I know who he is.
So he has that special move where it's like that off-screen, like the called the Raging Demon. So like when
Uh,
Dennis fell down the stairs, I was like, I can't believe Kreese just Raging Demon Dennis, where he just like did the
oh,
off-screen stuff. But what I really like about that scene is that not only is Kreese paying back Johnny for saving his life, but um, in parallel to how season one, episode 10, he was shrouded in darkness.
yeah.
I loved how he was like in light because of the sunny day and everything like that. And like he no longer had any regrets or anything like that. I think that was like my favorite part of that. One of my favorite parts of that episode of Strike Last. So
That that was yeah. I thought I mean it's always nice to see Sensei William return on the screen,
mhm,
and I we find out that he's the one that blew up
right.
Barnes's furniture store. But what a way for Kreese and Silver to go out with a bang, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I don't know if I saw that coming, but holy hell, like I was like, they better not. We better not see them at the very end. Like
right.
on the shore, like moving or twitching or something. Like it ended that way. But I think that was pretty finite. Like that, the yacht blew up. They were on it.
Yeah, they're
Crease,
that's it.
yeah, Crease was ready to go. And so, are you happy with that? With that ending for them?
Yes, mainly because Kreese, Kreese became very Miyagi-like in
Yeah,
that episode and the previous episode because the fact that he was like he was never a source of weakness. He was always a source of strength, and he surpassed his teacher. Like that's like the greatest compliment Johnny could have ever gotten. Um, I think it's very fitting for Silver to finally get his just desserts because he just kind of got away with too many things too long, and
yeah,
and what better way? And like kind of like what we talked about earlier. It's just like the real three people that were associated with like the strike first, strike hard, no mercy. At least the darker intents of that, they're all gone now, which is Kim
yeah.
Sung Young, Kreese, and Silver. So I thought it was
Right.
appropriate. Yeah.
Miguel wins, also going to Stanford. We're happy to see that. Robbie and Tori will be kind of doing what like some of these martial artists that were playing like the international dojos do, like
Right.
traveling around, and so they're going to be doing that. I love that. Um, I also love the respect, quote unquote respect that Sensei Wolf gives to Johnny for the
Hmm.
victory at the very end, but also your main pupil is ashamed of being your pupil, and the guy who was your savior disappeared,
Yeah.
So yeah, hell of a way for a Wolf to kind of exit, but I did like the little bow to Johnny. And again, I was just like, where are we going to get any sort of Sensei Wolf stuff? So again, when we do get it, it's meaningful. The visit in the locker room, and then all the fight. So I thought that was a really great dynamic for those guys. Um, let's see here. Anything else before we get to like the end? We find out that Sam is going to Okinawa. I
Hmm.
thought that's where we were going to get Kumiko. I thought she's going to go over there and Kumiko's going to help her out. I thought that's the cameo we're going to get. So no Tam and Tamita. But yeah, Miguel decides that he's going to join her for this little trip because they didn't get to do that in part two when they discussed it before Miguel flying back to the US because of his mom. But
Right.
yeah, the very end of this, how does it end before we get the kind of end stinger?
Johnny's kind of teaching his class
Ah, that's
like
right.
in season one. Here's the other thing.
Penny, Devin, and Anthony, kind of
Yes.
like his main students. I love that.
Here's my question to you. I know Mary's tears were real. Do you think Courtney's tears were real too in that scene?
I
I
think
think
so.
so.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, because like if you think about it, she's kind of been like, she's been the TV mom for over 7 years.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit of like, fly little bird, go do great things.
Hmm.
I think all the tears were real. I think every single tears were real. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I love the airport scene. I love, yeah, the Miguel chasing after Sam. It was kind of like, Daniel to Miyagi, going to Okinawa.
Right.
Yeah, I just love how everything wrapped up from Courtney being the karate mom and then seeing her. Um, it was Winnie, I think, that got in her head a
Yeah.
little bit about like, your first, moving away kind of deal. So I love seeing that pay off in that
Right.
very comical scene. But the end stinger, and jump in if you could think of anything else, because I know we're kind of like just glossing
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
as
That's
we're
fine.
trying to wrap up. But I love that we get John and Josh playing some
Yeah.
guys named Jake and Jeremy. Uh, and they're having a pitch of alternate 1985 in Hill Valley. And like the layers of that is also often when you see John Hurwitz like in an interview, he's often in their office with the Doc Brown portrait, like with the chalkboard and
Oh,
talking
okay.
about alternate 1985. So I love seeing that, and they name drop Billy Zane,
Hmm.
Leah Thompson, and Thomas F. Wilson. But and then they said that, and we'll get Mike to direct it. So whenever that project is, I want to see it. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that little pitch. Kind of interesting that they ended with like a sushi restaurant and Johnny killing the fly.
Yeah.
It was good. So I thought Johnny was gonna maybe sit down, grab some chopsticks, and grab it. I don't know. Like I'm sure they've discussed. Like how do we want to end it with this? What'd you think about that sequence?
I think so because when I was watching it, one of the things that kind of came to mind was that, obviously the man who can catch fly with chopsticks can accomplish anything, which we know that Daniel won the All Valley and Miyagi made amends with
Yeah,
Sato. So technically, maybe Daniel did wasn't quick enough because he never quote unquote destroyed Cobra Kai. So for
yeah,
Johnny to be like that, no mercy, I think that's kind of like very fitting because the show is Cobra Kai. So, and then of course, just Daniel just smiling at Johnny. It was really cool. I also love the fact that we got a callback to where Anthony was going to Cobra Kai, Devin to Miyagi-Do,
yeah,
because in Underdogs they were arguing about which one should have made the team. So I thought that was a very
yeah.
nice way to go from there. So
Uh, I don't want to get into it too much, and if you have some thoughts about it, but I'll have to go back and listen to the dialogue. But it almost kind of, so are they running their own separate dojos, or are they doing kind of like a dual thing where you can kind of go back and forth, or
I
you know what I
wonder
mean?
if it's where Miyagi-Do, kind of like how in season six Miyagi-Do was the main dojo, but they were teaching under other disciplines. I wonder now
Yeah,
if it's Cobra Kai, but Miyagi-Do is now kind of the under the umbrella, if that makes sense. Because
yeah,
even
yeah.
Johnny says there's no one way, So
Maybe it's like co-dojos, right? Like Daniel's
that
gonna
too,
be
yeah,
Miyagi-Do, right? I'm Cobra Kai, and it's always going to be that way. But now we're not enemies. We're going to do this together. And so, yeah,
yeah.
man, it's so crazy. So it does suck that the show ends. I was pretty speechless. I didn't really have a lot of words because I think like I was still processing everything,
Right.
during my little pre-recorded live viewing of it. But yeah, I'm satisfied with the ending. It gave us just about everything and then some. Um, I think I don't even want to say, oh, what's my least favorite, like whatever. I think any criticism, I've already said it. Like Chosen showing up and it's just like, well, since he can just murder her grandfather, like that's
Yeah.
really the only thing. But other than that, I feel everybody is in a really great trajectory for themselves. All the characters. There's a thought that I just had, since we're talking about like characters and where they're headed. You mentioned Leah a little bit, and I was just like, yeah, yeah, why isn't there a Leah? Probably for the same reason that there might not be a Zach that didn't return, that Anthony and Kenny ended up going to the same high school. Maybe those other two just ended up going to a different high school because of borders. Like I think that's really easy to explain because she was someone that I thought would actually come back as well. So
So here, that's actually no, you're right because well, I was thinking, I was like, well, technically they toured West Valley High together, but that also doesn't mean that they were going to go to West Valley. So that, yeah, that's actually a good point that you're making.
I
So,
forgot about the
yeah,
tour, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
So it could be a lot of different things. Strife, thank you for joining me. Had a lot
of
of
course,
fun. Wish I had a
same.
little bit more time, and we probably could have continued talking for at least like another 30 minutes. Any final thoughts before you wrap up, and also use this moment to pimp out anything that you're going to be working on. So if people liked hearing what you have to say and want to check out your videos, which I highly recommend,
Yeah.
please share where they can find you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. I'm at youtube.com/Strife the Warrior. Got Easter egg videos coming out. I'm also working on a couple interviews too, which I'm excited for. So, yeah, just stay tuned for everything. So,
All right. For me, you guys, you probably found this over at Companion Network on YouTube. I do have the audio podcast, over 151 interviews with cast and crew. I think 335 at least episodes for the entire podcast, long form interviews, episode breakdowns, trailer breakdowns, and stuff of that nature. So, you're listening to this and haven't done so, there should be individual episodes on the YouTube channel of me reacting to these episodes, watching them for the very first time. A lot of tears, guys, a lot of tears, and a lot of I don't think I blew my nose on the camera. If I did, I'm sure I silenced it, but like I pulled out the tissues several times just wiping my eyes. Really quite enjoyed this. Love seeing the creators making a cameo before the end and seeing all those familiar faces. So it made it a really fun watch, not only to see how the show would end, but to see all the people that put in so much hard work into the show get a
yeah,
little love on screen. Yeah.
for
So
sure.
thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again, Strife, and we'll catch you guys next time.